So I've made a few videos now, and I thought I should probably introduce myself and how I got into self-publishing myself. So I'm James Anderson, and I've been self-publishing books since 2017, so nearly 9 years ago, and my knees suddenly hurt. I'll be honest with you, my first book, it wasn't really a book. I also self-published it for all the wrong reasons. You see, I never really wanted to be an author. What I wanted to do was write TV shows and films. That's where my passion really laid. And way back in the 2010s, I had an idea for a TV show. It was a modern retelling of the old fables of Robin Hood. At that time, we were just coming out of the recession, and every day you looked at the news and there would be just another form of scandal, one way or another. It would be a billionaire laying off all their staff and stealing their pensions and owning a super yacht. It would be celebrities doing some kind of tax fiddle. It would be MPs' expenses, scandals. To be fair, I could pick up a newspaper right now and list you off the exact same thing, because fuck all has changed. But at the time, I thought to myself, we need a Robin Hood. And I started thinking to myself, how would that go in the modern life? He wouldn't be lining the highways waiting to rob wagons as they came across. All the money is in the banks, if there's any money at all. So I started developing the idea. It would have been an army captain who went AWOL during the Afghan war after seeing something that he didn't like, and he would come back to the UK years later to find that people are losing their homes. Payday loan companies are taking the piss with interest rates. MPs doing dodgy deals to benefit them and their friends, etc. and so forth. I ended up writing in my head 2 seasons of 10 episodes with a full 2-season arc. It involved all the main characters, obviously Robin Hood, Little John, Much Miller, Will Scarlet, Friar Tuck, Sheriff of Nottingham, Guy Gisborne, and of course Maid Marian. For years it rattled around in my head as I dealt with loads of outside problems, like work issues, personal problems, relocations, but it never really left my head. It was always just burning away in the back of my mind. So once I got settled and comfortable where I was living and working, I wrote it out properly, the first season at the very least, and I finished that probably the back end of 2016. But then I started to panic, because what if somebody else comes up with the same idea or steals this one? See, I was talking to a lot of people about it at the time, and some of those were industry adjacent, let's say. So I was very worried that they would take this idea and run with it. So to cover my own arse, I whacked it out, the first episode, the pilot, in book form. It was still in screenplay form, but it was formatted, sized, and fonted so that it's ready for publishing. At the same time, I discovered KDP and thought this would be the platform that I would use to do it. So I kind of bodged it. That's also the reason why I'm doing this channel. Now that I've learned a lot more about it and I've polished my process and I want to help others. So if you want to learn about the self-publishing industry, make sure you give this video a like and make sure you subscribe, because I've got a ton more coming as well. But with Robin, I still shopped it around agents. I created a whole pitch deck for it, but I was still getting stonewalled at every turn. And I pretty much gave up at that point. I just thought that my writing days were over. Fast forward to 2020, and I get made redundant from my job as a business analyst about 3 weeks before the world went tits up and shut down because of COVID. And I'm stuck at home with no one around and nowhere to go. I wasn't allowed to leave within reason. So during that time, there was a lot of self-reflection about the things that I've done and the things that I've been through. And I decided to put it all down into a book. But this time, actual novel writing with a twist. You see, for a book to be interesting for me, it has to be something unique, not just A, B, C, D. There has to be some kind of twist that makes me want to start reading it and then keep going. So for me, for this book, I framed it in such a way that it was about a guy expecting his first child. So in the run up to the birth and as he navigates his life, he starts having flashbacks, like a kind of life flashing before his eyes type angle, where all the modern day stuff that was happening was fictional, but all the flashbacks were factual because they all happened to me. So in the book, all the being homeless, arguments with parents, the lessons learned, the near-death experiences, they all actually happened because they all actually happened to me. Publishing this one was a really big thing for me because it was 100% me. It was vulnerable. It was putting myself out there. But I didn't really shout about it. I did maybe 1 or 2 Instagram posts about it, and that was it. So I guess not completely out there, but it was still something. But I went into the KDP portion of the process a little more educated. The cover was better. The blurb was improved. The formatting was still a little sketchy. I did do it on Microsoft Word, to be fair, but it encouraged me to keep going, to keep writing. It reignited my passion for writing. So with that done and my writing rejuvenated, it was time for my next writing quest. And that was something big. My magnum opus, One Epic Year. See, the idea for One Epic Year started off with a pretty bad holiday in 2017, not that long after I published Robin, to be fair. And it started off as a Halloween-themed horror movie set in a cabin by a lake in Scotland near a virtually abandoned fishing town. It was set in that location because that's where we were staying at the time being Halloween. I may go more into that in a separate video because it's quite a long story that involves a train, a lake, a drowning dog, being dumped like 2 or 3 days later. But by the end of this really bad weekend, I had the whole film mapped out in my head. Then a few days later in the UK, here we have Guy Fawkes Night. So I started to think to myself, we've not had a really pared back spy movie in quite some time. And I don't mean one where global domination is the villain's plan or anything like that, but something a bit more feasible. So I started planning it out in my head. For some reason, the same 4 characters just kept popping up, the same 4 characters from Halloween. And I thought maybe it could be like some kind of anthology, like an Abbott and Costello style adventures involving the same characters, just in different scenarios. Then came Christmas, New Year's Eve, and I started this whole arc undercutting it all. That ended up being a TV show of 10 episodes. So again, I ended up trying to shop it around various agents and simply got ignored. Sometimes an idea is so out there that it's kind of difficult to convey. So I joined multiple forums online, watched multiple YouTube videos on how to get it done. I even considered trying to make it myself, like with some kind of Kickstarter, but it was such a huge project that financially I just wouldn't be able to have done it. But I was so passionate about this. I refined everything. I even had a soundtrack that I would listen to as I wrote it and came up with different set pieces for the plot and for the story. I just couldn't let this idea be put on hold for so many years like Robin was. It couldn't be just a fantasy for me. And I loved it. I loved this idea, and I loved how writing it made me feel so free to be my own creative self. So I edited it, I re-edited it, something that I didn't really do with my other books. There was one episode that I just had to get rid of, which was a musical episode, because it just wouldn't have translated onto the page. That's the thing with One Epic Year. Each day, each portion of this show, and now each portion of that book, is set in a different genre, which is what made it so fun. This was the unique twist straight from the off that would have made me start reading and then continue to read, because you don't know what's coming next, in what genre is coming next. So I was writing a coming of age book, followed by a rom-com, followed by a dark thriller, followed by sci-fi time travel, followed by heist, followed by horror, followed by spy genre, followed by buddy comedy Christmas, followed by apocalyptic end time battle. It was so much fun to write. So I started posting about it a lot more regularly, and I picked out the covers, the blurb, the marketing strategy, A+ content, which I never did before. I took photos of the book in different locations, be it at the train station, the airport, London city centre. I once spent a day in IKEA dropping it around different rooms in IKEA and taking pictures. So I've got hundreds of pictures of my books in different locations to help with the marketing strategy. It's currently in a re-release schedule at the moment, because I'm releasing different days that correspond to the different days to which they are set. I'm doing it through an arc system, which is very closely followed by a general release. So if you want to be on the arc list, I'm going to leave the link in the description below. Use that to sign up for the next one that comes out. And in doing all of this, it's really ignited my passion, not just for writing, but for self-publishing and for learning more about the industry itself. And that's why I'm doing this channel. Because when I started, there wasn't that much around there. In all my research over the years, I've found some proper bullshit that should be ignored at all costs. That's why I'm going to give it to you straight. With all the lessons that I've learned, with all of the mistakes that I've made, because I wish that there was someone there for me, giving me all of this information with no shit, doing what I'm doing now all those years ago. So what's next? Well, another book. Something different this time, but again, with a unique reason to start and keep reading. It's going to be in the same world, but with different characters. It's already outlined and started. I think I'm about 6 or 7 chapters deep so far. I'm constantly learning. And because this is an industry that's constantly changing with various goalposts being moved, with various different trends, you kind of have to. So 9 years, 7 books and counting, a ridiculous amount learned, a silly number of mistakes. I'm now loving how my weird little brain and the stories it can come up with can be brought to life. Don't get me wrong. There are times when it feels like, what's the point? Or sit in front of the computer and think, shit, I've forgotten that awesome plot point I just thought of 5 minutes ago. And there's no doubt in my mind that you have that too. I have it a ridiculous amount of times. But that's life sometimes. You just need to remember, you're not stuck. You're just starting at a new chapter in your life.